New Year's Day terror attack. Of course, there is also another investigation underway, that investigation on the explosion in Las Vegas. But now to New Orleans. Authorities are still insisting 42-year-old Samsudin Jabbar acted alone, they say, in the attack on Bourbon Street. That attack, as you know, killing 14 people. Now we are learning more about his movements before the attack. During a press conference Sunday, the FBI said Jabbar actually traveled to Cairo, Egypt from June 22nd to July 3rd in 2023. After that, he flew to Ontario, Canada, and returned to the U.S. a few days later. As of this morning, it is still unclear whether those trips are connected to the Bourbon Street attack.
Yeah, according to officials, Jabbar also made at least 2 trips to New Orleans in October and November prior to the attack. While there, he recorded video of Bourbon Street with Meta smart glasses. The FBI also releasing this surveillance footage. In the video, you can see Jabbar walking around Bourbon Street, placing the 2 coolers containing IEDs. Investigators suspect he planned to use a transmitter in the truck to detonate those IEDs, but thankfully they were never set off and safely contained by authorities once they were discovered.
Right now, we do want to bring in our panel of security experts this Monday morning. Former special agent in charge with the U.S. Secret Service, Frank Loveridge. Also with us this morning, retired FBI agent Bobby Chacon. Thank you both for being with us this morning. Lots to get to, lots happening over the weekend. Frank, I want to get to you first. Investigators are telling us they're trying to figure out if Jabbar had any associates in the U.S. or in overseas, particularly if he met with any of those people when he was on those overseas trips, and if there is any connection to his plan for this attack in and on Bourbon Street. What are your sources telling you? Any new information on this morning?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think the first thing we need to do is reach out to our partners within State Department, also with our agencies overseas, as well as our foreign government of Egypt, and find out if we can get more information on who he met with when he traveled to Cairo. That's not a normal tourist spot for people to go to, so traveling there to Cairo and then going back to Ontario, Canada. One thing I remember from doing my days of investigations is Canada and Ontario was a jumping off point for a lot of terrorist activity would come in through that part of the world and then cross over the northern border in the United States. So there's a lot of information out there that needs to be investigated. I'm not going to make any unsubstantiated claims at this time, but we have a lot of work to do before we say that this individual acted alone.
Yeah, Bobby, the FBI New Orleans special agent in charge told reporters Jabbar was wearing Meta glasses at the time of the attack, but did not activate the glasses to live stream his actions that day. What evidence, if any, could law enforcement still obtain from these glasses? Maybe there was something recorded but not activated in a live stream.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways to do that, right? You can record it for your own purposes to review later on, which he did, and to live stream. So he didn't choose the live stream option. He was probably in previous visits to the French Quarter. We know he did at least 2 previous visits to the French Quarter recently. We know that from yesterday's press conference. And so, yeah, he was probably doing pre-event surveillance, what we call pre-event surveillance. He was looking for spots to put those IEDs down. He was looking for potential places where police were gathering that he wanted to avoid on the night of his attack. So all of this was going in. And so they're reviewing that video to see, what he was looking at, where he was going, and match it up to his activities on the night of the attack.
Wow. Well, Frank, I'm going to put this to both of you, really. A lot of people were outraged, particularly the people in New Orleans, also law enforcement nationwide, absolutely aghast when they heard that the New Orleans police commissioner, the leader there, saying she did not even know that they had 48 barriers that could have prevented this attack. Those barriers were not used during New Year's. Then we found out when they were put out, the CEO of the company contacted them saying they were not set up properly. The wheels were actually still on them when they were on the street. Over the weekend, Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy reacted to this, saying there needs to be, quote unquote, consequences for law enforcement failures. Let's take a listen to this, and I want you both to give us your reaction on the other side.
If everything as you laid out is as you said it, absolutely. There has to be leadership at the top. And if the leadership failed as you describe it, then absolutely there has to be consequences. Period. End of story. Now, I think we're going to have a kind of complete review of everything from top to bottom.
You know, when you look at the lives lost and the fact that this happened, Bobby, from what you've seen, in addition to those 48 barriers that were not in place, what else might have been done to prevent this attack?
Well, it's difficult because soft targets like this are very difficult to secure. But you need to do everything that's at least put in place for you. And Senator Cassidy hits it right on the head. It really harkens back to me to pre-Katrina, when we knew federal money had been deployed there for levees to be built that were never built. So there's a history of this kind of thing in New Orleans. When the money is distributed and those things are bought, they have to be installed. And if they're not working properly, they have to be, installed properly, and they have to be, the rehearsals have to be made, and you have to make sure that all of the things, at least that have been given to you, are there and working properly. You're constantly asking for more resources for security all the time. But once the stuff is given to you and secured for you, boy, you better make sure that it's in place and it's working properly. There's really no excuse for that.
And Frank, let's get your response as well, but I want you to follow up with this as well. President Biden is expected to visit New Orleans and meet with families of the victims today. Obviously, there will be enhanced security surrounding his visit, but it brings to mind, again, other big events coming to the Big Easy, the Super Bowl next month, Mardi Gras after that. What additional security measures should be put in place prior to those events, Frank, because this is a sad reminder, the deaths, that security needs to be better prepped. And the plastic pylons and cones, that's not doing it. Maybe we need cement. Maybe we need more security. What needs to happen to make sure people feel safe when they go to these large-scale events?
So I've been involved with setting up the security of the perimeter for the inauguration routes, as well as the State of the Union address, other big events that have happened in the history of the Secret Service. And the big thing you have to remember is that you have to look at your threat, examine your threat. What is it? We know that the method of operation for these terrorist activities is to use vehicles as weapons. So you have to make sure that that vehicle cannot get into the way of public gatherings, such as the large gatherings we had on Bourbon Street that night, which means you can't put plastic barricades up or wooden barricades up. And police vehicles are not going to be able to stop a vehicle traveling at high rate of speed. What we would use is we would contact Public Works. We would get in dump trucks, snow plows, whatever we needed, that we could move back and forth if we had to make sure that we secured that route, to make sure no one could get around the barricades. That's the first thing you need to do. These are temporary measures that can take place. And then, of course, the plan is to have permanent bollards placed by the Super Bowl. I don't know why they did not replace the temporary ones with some better form of barricade to stop these this kind of an attack, but that's something we can take a look at and we can assess. And the Archer, what we were talking about, Bobby was talking about, was the Archer barricades that were not deployed, and the police chief did not know, was unaware that they were sitting there in storage and could have been deployed that day, and then weren't deployed appropriately, is very concerning for a city that wants to be Super Bowl.
Well, they've got some weeks to get some of these things corrected, as you both said. Frank Loveridge, Bobby Chacon, thank you both for being with us. We were looking at the pictures of those who lost their lives. Our thoughts, our prayers continuing to be with the people in and around New Orleans who were affected by this tragedy. Thank you both.